Hi, everybody. How are you doing? This is Bobby Geevarughese with Pain Rehab PT. Today, I wanted to just make a video to give people tips on grief and how to grieve. Just from my own experience of when I lost my brother, I have learned a lot of things over the years, and I wish I knew these things maybe in the beginning. And the reason I bring this up also, it's to help grievers, and it's to also help them to avoid potentially in the future of dealing with a lot of health issues and potentially chronic symptoms like pain that may come up as a result of not dealing with grief properly. So I just wanted to give some advice of what worked for me and what's helped me and helping me to calm my symptoms down that I've had of pain and other body symptoms that have shown up over the years. So when it comes to grief, just remember that at this point, we're all a part of a unique club now, a club for people like us who are grieving. Nobody wants to be in this club, but it has many members. You're not alone. There are many Facebook groups and other groups out there where you can find many members who are grieving and that people are there for support. And so just remember that you're not alone in this. It's important to find your support group. And that could be friends, it could be family, it could be a local support group. It's just something where you can find people who can support you in the way that you need to be supported. Everybody's different when it comes to grief, and no two people will grieve the same way. And so it's just important to find what works for you. I recommend finding a grief counselor. This was very helpful for me in the beginning where I had someone to talk to about all these things. It's really a lot to take on for a loved one, your own family members, anybody like that. If you're trying to rely on them, it's a lot to take on emotionally. And it could be a heavy toll to take. And so it's important to find a counselor if you're able to. And even if you can't find a counselor, even a support group is still helpful. A support group can give you so much information and teaching and knowledge. And even for me, in my case, personally, it helped me a lot as well. I learned a lot from my support group. And even I only took my support group, I only participated in last year. So this was, my brother passed in 2020. And so the first time I did a support group was 2024. It took me 4 years to find a group. And this was what Christian oriented, at least this group, but you can really find any group that works for you. But I did learn a lot from the group. And what I learned from the group, it was able to help me to overcome some of the chronic symptoms I was dealing with, the chronic pain symptoms and other body symptoms I was dealing with still. And so it just helped me to look at grief from a different perspective. And I'm going to share that with you in a little bit as well, what I learned. Grief affects you in so many ways. It affects you physically, affects you emotionally, affects you spiritually. And so it's just important to have an understanding of this. It just affects you in so many areas of your life. And so it's important to try your best to learn about these things because you might have days where you're so tired and you don't really know what's going on, but it can be connected to grief. You might have different symptoms like headaches show up, stomach issues that show up, and it's all related to grief. We might think these symptoms are random, but grief it really can be the most powerful experience someone deals with in their life and emotionally, and it can really affect you. And it can be traumatic in so many ways as well, depending on how someone loses their loved one as well. And so it's important to just be aware of these things. And that's why it's important too, if you're able to find a counselor, find a support group so you can learn more about these things as well. One major thing to realize is that people around you will not change, even though you've had a major loss. It's not personal. I had to learn this myself, especially. I had family members, cousins and uncles and aunts who didn't really ever say a word to me after my brother passed. I had coworkers who never said anything to me, people in my own church who avoided me. And once I learned more about grief, I learned that this was actually a very common experience. It's something many people go through. And even when I read message boards and other sites that had tips for grievers, many people even reported some of their best friends, close family members who, after they had a significant loss, they didn't even hear from them. And that was devastating for them as well. But for those people, sometimes they didn't even talk to those people ever again. I wouldn't recommend that because it's important just to, again, recognize that for many people, they also might not have the experience of grief themselves, so they don't really know what it feels like. And when you do talk to people, eventually, if you ever have that experience talking to people who've had a loss, you do find out from them that it's actually, they are experiencing the same things that you have been experiencing yourself and you have experienced. And so that's the one big piece of advice I would recommend. It's something I need to learn myself and remember is not to take things personally. Many people don't know how to help grievers and they don't know what to say to people who are grieving. So when they don't know what to say or what to do, they just avoid the person. They avoid saying anything, even offering a condolence because they don't know if it's the right thing to say or if it's going to offend somebody. And they don't know how to help, so they just don't help. It's hard for people to know how to help really and what to say. And that's why it's important where we try to give people advice too, which I'll be making another video about that as well, is helping people to learn how to help people who are grieving and how they can be supportive to grievers. And what I was talking about before is kind of the same thing about grieving, the way that you need to grieve. Some people, they want to get out and about and live life and be active and kind of get back to things the way they were. Some people might just want to be left alone and spend time to themselves and just kind of have time for just not doing so many things, not being so active. Sometimes they might just want to stay home and just really not do much and not go out and spend time with family or friends. That's really okay because everybody's different. It's important that you just find out what works for you because you don't want grief to become complicated. Complicated grief would be much more severe with grief. You can have a lot of health issues with that one. And so we want to try to have our grief from progressing to be complicated grief. And another point I wanted to bring up was this idea of forgiveness. So it's really just important to learn to forgive others, especially during a time like this with grief. Just like I mentioned before, you can have that experience, like I had that experience of many people maybe not reaching out or staying in touch with me or calling me and following up with me as time went on and the years went on. And I held on to a lot of anger and bitterness because of that, but it was really only hurting me in the end. When we hold on to anger and bitterness about a lot of things in life, it really leads to a lot of health problems. And especially in the work that I do with mind body work, you can find for many people just holding on to bitterness and not learning to forgive others, it really puts your nervous system into a fight or flight state. And in doing that, it can create more physical symptoms in the body. And a lot of research has been done about this as well, about the idea of forgiveness. And when we don't forgive, we have a lot of other health issues like the risk of diabetes, the risk of heart disease, and other conditions. And when we learn to forgive, we'll really learn to let go of these struggles we're having, let go of that anger. And again, it's this idea of learning to move forward. And we forgive others, but it might not necessarily mean that we might have a relationship with them again. It would make sense if somebody can reconnect and they are apologetic for something they might have done to us and they realize their mistakes. I think sometimes it's different than to kind of reconcile the relationship. But if someone doesn't learn to apologize for things they've done, or if they can just, again, come to you and just ask for forgiveness in return, it might not be a relationship you might keep in the future. And that's okay. You try, you do the best you can. But really, when you forgive, you're really doing it for yourself. And again, you hopefully have those relationships again in the future. It's really just a way to help you to learn to move forward. And it's really helpful for your health as well. And you don't need to learn to move on. You might hear that advice from people where they tell you like, oh, just move on. Your loved one's gone or they've been gone now for some time. The idea is really to learn to move forward. An experience like this changes you forever. And I could say that now this year will be 5 years for me with my brother. And it's better for me this year in the sense of I'm learning more how to process my grief and how to celebrate my brother versus just grieving and mourning and being upset about different days of the year and holidays and birthdays and all those things. And so that's what I would say for you as well. Is the idea is we don't move on, we move forward in life. This experience changes you forever. And so it's that idea, but you can use it in a way to be like, it's a normal part of life, even though it's difficult, but it's also how can I learn to celebrate my loved one at this time and remember them and remember in the way that works for me and feels right for me. That's all I would recommend about that. You hear those stories. I haven't had anyone personally say that to me, but I've heard that it is an experience for other people who are grieving. And so I just want you to just remember that too. Again, it's just about learning how to move forward with your life, about how to remember your loved one. And the final piece of advice I want to give, I guess not an all-inclusive list I'm giving, but the final piece of advice that worked for me is the idea of grief. And I was just mentioning just right now about that, celebrating your loved one. It's important because if you avoid holidays and you avoid birthdays and you do not look forward to certain days, and I know it can be difficult to look forward to it, but for example, I'll tell you this year was my brother's birthday. And for the last 5 years, for the most part, I have not looked forward to his birthday. But just remembering him and my family's grieving and everyone's kind of sad and we don't know what to do. And it's a day usually I do not feel good really, right? But this year I made a point that I was going to celebrate my brother on his birthday this year, which was only a few weeks ago. And so my family and I, my wife, we just got a cake for my brother and we had his photo out here and we lit a candle for him and we celebrated a birthday cake for him with our daughter. And it was a much better way of spending the day. And even when I spent the day just not trying to do too many things. I knew it was going to be a heavy day, emotionally. We just took it easy. We just kind of ran errands and went to go watch a movie and went to just go out to eat, things like that, because I know it can be a lot for me and my mind can be on things too. It felt much better as a day in general versus the other years where I was kind of more miserable and unhappy. And I will say the one thing that's usually happening to me as well with a lot of these days that come up is that I get a lot of symptoms, mind-body symptoms. And so for me, grief has produced a lot of mind-body symptoms over the years, especially I had severe ones last year, which I mentioned in one of my other videos, my interview I did with Jim at the Pain PT. And because I was avoiding grief so much, I was doing whatever I could to avoid it. My body and my nervous system felt grief was dangerous. And then it would create mind-body symptoms for me, and sometimes severe, like I was saying. So, and the same thing can happen for you. If we don't learn how to process our grief, that's what's going to happen to any of us. We can have a lot of mind-body symptoms, and our grief is going to show up in different ways in our body. And it's going to keep continuing to happen unless we learn how to process our grief. We learn to come to terms with our grief, and we learn to accept it. So these are just some tips I wanted to share with you. And so I just hope that these tips can just give you some help. It's just some advice of what I went through, things you can avoid. So you can avoid just all the health issues and other problems that can come up with grief. Like I was saying, mentioned, like physically, emotionally, spiritually, a lot of different issues can come up. And so my hope is that you can avoid those things. I'm going to be sharing another video where I talk about how people can give support and comfort to grievers, and that advice is more focused for them. In the description below, I'm just going to link a free guide that I made for people, and it's free for you as well. It's just advice I give about how to deal with mind-body symptoms, and it's the tips that I found to be most powerful in doing that. And again, you can just find it in the link below in the description. So again, I hope this video is helpful, and I'll see you again in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye.